Hey everybody, and welcome to Knitting Time with Willie. My name is Willie, joined as always by my co-host Nicholas. And last time I was on here talking about America's Next Top Model, I ended the episode by saying this: I'm not gonna give up on this one. I'm going to finish it if it kills me. And after watching the episode I'm about to talk about today, I kind of regret making that promise. Let's be honest, if you've watched even a second of America's Next Top Model, then you know that it is not without its problems. Ow, ow, ow.
I think just work out and get yourself toned up a little bit. Nothing drastic, just tone it up, and I think it'll really help you.
I don't like gay people, I don't like Muslims, I don't like abortions, I don't like anything liberal. But other than that, I really like to get along with people.
But for as, let's say, of its time, as the show has been in the past, no episode has ever felt as difficult to discuss as the one I'm going to talk about today. There's a lot of fun stuff here, but there's also a lot of stuff that leaves an extremely bad taste in my mouth. Honestly, there's part of me that thinks I should just skip over talking about this episode completely, but since I ended my last episode saying I wasn't going to do that, I will instead remind you of something else that I said in an earlier episode. There are a lot of parts of the show that maybe aren't the best things for me to be talking about as a probably cis white man. I feel very in over my head right now, and so I genuinely just want to apologize in advance if I say anything stupid going forward. It's obviously not anybody else's job to educate me, but if for some reason I do say something that you disagree with or think that I mishandled, please feel free to comment below, and I promise to read what you have to say and be open to any and all legitimate criticisms. But yeah, with that out of the way, let's get started by talking about Season 8, Episode 5, The Girl Who Kissed a Male Model. Oh boy. Things might get kind of heavy here the more we go on, so I figured we could start by discussing one of the lighter aspects of the episode. By this I am of course talking about the physical injuries that a contestant suffered due to unsafe filming conditions. Ow, ow, ow. When last we left off, Danielle injured herself while competing in a judging challenge that required her to walk in extremely high-heeled shoes, and for some reason the show decided to open this episode by showing the entire world what they did to her.
Oh, my toe is swollen. Look at my pinky toe. Last elimination, I was in 10-inch heels and I tripped. Careful. Are you okay? I want to America's Next Top Model with crutches.
I said last week that it seemed like the producers were doing everything they could to make sure they had video evidence that Danielle was okay in case she decided to lawyer up, and I was mostly joking about that. But that said, the way they handle it in this episode, I'm starting to think that maybe that wasn't a joke at all. I think it's worth noting that most of what Danielle says here is done as a talking head interview, but the background suggests that they did it in the house instead of their usual studio setup.
But your ankle's okay?
Yeah, my ankle, it hurt when I fell, but it's not hurt right now, it's my toe. I have a really, really high tolerance for pain. I think it'll feel a lot better tomorrow.
And so that kind of makes me think that some producer was scrambling to get Danielle saying she's okay on film, so they just sent some camera guy to the house as soon as they could, and they were just like, we don't have time to set everything up, just do it on the couch. Of course, this is just a conspiracy theory that I made up with no actual basis in reality, and well, given all the fun stuff that conspiracy theories have caused in the past few years, maybe I shouldn't be so quick to throw new ones out into the internet. In the producer's defense, I guess I don't feel good saying that, but in the producer's defense, I don't think that Danielle was coerced into saying anything that she wouldn't have anyway, because Literally every line she has on the show is about how she has a high tolerance for pain.
And I know in this industry, you gotta have tough skin. And like, I got gator skin without the bump. Till you've been through like some hard knocks, it toughens your skin. It hurts, but you know, the best fall down sometimes as long as you get back up.
But still, the entire segment feels very much like the producers are intentionally covering their asses and making sure everyone knows that Danielle isn't actually hurt. Despite the fact that she's still visibly on crutches. And like, look, I don't think that what happened to Danielle is the worst thing to ever happen on this show. If we're being honest, it's not even the worst thing to happen to Danielle on this show. But for the record, just because the person you hurt says they're okay does not mean that you didn't still hurt them. So to any producers of America's Next Top Model watching this, I don't care what she said. You should be ashamed of yourself for what you did to Danielle. Also, thank you very much for making this show. You're amazing at what you do, and I love it very much. Aside from Danielle, we also get to check in with Nena as she talks to her boyfriend on the phone. And here's where the first part of that disclaimer at the beginning about me being a giant idiot comes into play, because I have a lot of thoughts on their relationship, and there's a solid chance I will express them in a way that makes me sound very stupid.
My boyfriend, he's just missing me because that's the first time we've been away from each other.
We're here, waiting in line to send her off to California. I want to make sure that y'all take care of my baby.
For example, my first thought is that this is just about the worst couple that I have ever seen in my life. They're kind of like a gritty, real-world example of one of those couples you see on a CBS sitcom where the wife is a gorgeous movie star and the husband's just some guy, and then you watch it and you're just kind of like, why are they together again? And that's not to say that her boyfriend isn't handsome, because I actually think that he is. And honestly, I feel like Nena is probably bound to be the hot one in any relationship that she's in. But that said, I feel like if you are dating Nena, then you need to come correct. And her boyfriend John has made some choices that I do not think are doing him any favors. Maybe his look was of his time, or maybe I'm just not a huge fan of soul patches, but whatever the case may be, I'm always very taken aback every time that I'm reminded that this is who Nena was dating at the time. That it kind of feels like finding out that God is real and they're dating some guy named Brent who works in your office. And normally I wouldn't be this focused on people's appearances because it's making me sound like an asshole and I don't like it. But I feel like in this situation, my brain is just scrambling for any reason to explain the relationship, and so it's making me focus on their looks a lot more than I normally would. Like, obviously I believe that anyone can date anyone and that can make a nice couple so long as they like each other and the chemistry is right, but that is not what's happening here, because I have never seen two people with less of a connection than the two of them. If it didn't say that he was her boyfriend on screen, I would honestly watch this phone call and be like, why are they making Nena talk to a random stranger on the phone? I think I would think it was a challenge.
Hello.
Hey, babe.
Hey, sweetie.
Okay, I just want to say I love you.
And look, we only get like 10 minutes of footage total of the relationship in action, so I can't really judge much about their connection if we're being honest. I am the first to admit that I do not know much about them as a couple, but still, despite my limited information pool, there is one thing of which I am quite sure, and that is the fact that Nena absolutely hates this man. Actually, no, I take that back. She honestly doesn't even seem like she cares enough about him to hate him. Like, there's this saying that the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference, and I kind of feel like this relationship is just that saying incarnate.
I understand how miserable it is, how miserable I am, not getting to talk to you.
You're getting to talk to me right
I get to hear from you.
My boyfriend, I guess I didn't realize how attached he really was to me.
And honestly, it's almost weirder that Nena seems so ambivalent towards him, because she kind of has a right to hate him. From what we see, he kind of sucks.
I'm a little scared. I don't know what you're up to, honey.
But then
been,
talk you
you
through, okay?
been, maybe have you been flirting with other guys?
I do get annoyed with John, and my gut is telling me that he might be a little too controlling. Okay, baby, go to sleep. I love you.
He's clearly very insecure in a way that seems very toxic to me, probably in no small part due to dildos like me pointing out that his girlfriend is gorgeous and his soul patch is not. He seems paranoid and possessive of Nena, and he keeps talking about her kissing other guys in a way that's icky and extremely unpleasant to watch. Every fiber of my being just wants to call this dude a dick and be done with it, but unfortunately things get a little complicated by the fact that, well, Nena does actually kiss someone later on in this episode. So we'll discuss this lovely relationship some more in a bit, but I'm already feeling in a little bit over my head. So for my own sake, I think we need to take a break from talking about something as heavy as a toxic relationship and talk about something a little bit lighter, you know, like the hardcore gaslighting of one of the contestants. It all starts with this week's lesson, in which Janice Dickinson comes by to give the girls a crash course on posing.
Good God, y'all! Who could it be?
In the last episode that I talked about Janice, I spent a lot of time talking about how despite her flaws, I have a genuine affection for her and think that she's great, but rewatching this episode, I think that I have to completely take all of that back. Like seriously, I think I maybe need to take that video down. I guess I still do have a lot of genuine affection for her, but in a way that you might love a horribly racist grandpa. Like, I've seen enough good in her that I feel the need to not completely write her off as a person, but I also do want to make it very clear that I do not condone a single word that comes out of her mouth this episode, because what she does here is completely indefensible. For starters, her lesson is absolutely terrible. She teaches the girls about the differences between commercial and editorial modeling, and going into this, I thought that I already kind of knew what the difference was, but after listening to Janice's lesson, I feel like I understand it way less than I thought I did.
Key elements for editorial posing is long, luscious, lovely. Commercial, happy, herky, skippy.
I don't know how to pose. She is explaining it to me, but I'm still having difficulty understanding what she's meaning by it.
As best I can tell, commercial modeling is just being happy, which explains the fact that Janice demonstrates it by just laughing a bunch of times for no reason.
It's really important to keep the energy going and the alligator.
And then, on the other hand, I guess editorial modeling is just like everything else.
Editorial modeling is more diva. Editorial posing is just about wearing a feeling. It's the feeling that the client gives you, the photographer gives you, the editor gives you that day.
I know there's more to it than that, but it literally could not matter less, because nothing she teaches in this lesson actually seems to matter in this episode. Janice is there 100% just to cause drama, a fact which becomes evident when we get to the question and answer portion of the segment. Gina seems to be a little confused by Janice's lesson, and rightfully so, and so she asks a question in a way that was not as confident as Janice would have liked, and because of that, Janice decides to mercilessly torture her for the remainder of the episode.
Hi, Gina.
Hello. I can't give a convincing photo. Like, I can't.
I can tell you right now that you just said, I can't give a convincing photograph.
No, that's
I don't want to hear the next thing out of your mouth, but go ahead.
I said earlier in my videos that I think Gina was probably cast because she seems like an easy target, and unfortunately for her, any easy target on this show is inevitably going to get targeted by Janice. Janice realizes immediately that she can dominate Gina, and so she just kind of runs with that and ends up abusing her power in some genuinely bold and interesting new ways.
Get up and back of the girls now and stand on one foot. Go stand on one foot and jump up and down on one foot.
Oh, God.
I'm not kidding you. Okay. Go on, jump up and down and hysterically laugh and look at me and do it.
God.
No, God, do it.
I think that Janice would say that she's trying to get Gina to loosen up in order to become a better model, but the end result is one of the darkest, saddest, funniest, most surreal moments I can remember ever seeing on television. Like it's honestly everything that good art should be.
Come on. Keep it going.
Gina was kind of clueless. I was just like, this girl has lost her damn mind.
I saw a tweet recently joking that ANTM is kind of like the Stanford prison experiment, and I feel like this moment is one of the best examples of why that tweet isn't really even a joke at all. It's silly, but I can't look at Gina at that moment and not feel really, really bad for her. Like, clearly she didn't really enjoy doing that, and it feels like she was very much forced into mildly humiliating herself because someone in a position of power made her do it. Although that said, it is very fun to watch.
Put your chin down.
I felt stupid. Of course, Jade is so happy at this point.
And of course, if that was the end of the story, I don't think that I would be making a big deal out of it because, well, it's silly more than anything. But unfortunately, the lesson is only the beginning of the story, because we're not done with Janice yet. After the lesson, Janice meets the girls at a restaurant and almost immediately starts bullying Gina again, only this time she does it in the form of a rap for some reason.
Give me a beat. Boom. Boom. Come on, Gina. Have fun. Laugh, Gina, laugh.
I talk about this show a lot, so I feel like some of the more surreal moments have kind of been normalized for me a little bit, but I'm not wrong in saying that's a really weird way to enter a room, right? Unsurprisingly, Janice and Jade connect on a level that seems to be deeper than any connection I have ever had with another human being.
Janice is just awesome.
What? I'm telling you. Color.
Me and her kind of click because we're on the same level.
And as beautiful as this friendship is, it's this unspoken bond that leads to one of the more upsetting moments in the entire history of America's Next Top Model. Janice starts talking to the girls about their life at home, and in order to get a better sense of who's fighting with who, she calls Gina over to sit on her lap and spill some tea.
Gina, what's really going on back at the house? Gina.
Yes?
Come on over here, Gina. Come here, baby.
Who's giving you some? Tell me and I'll go kick their ass.
Do I have to?
Yes. Tell me who's giving you.
Gina unsurprisingly points to Jade since there's been a lot of drama between the two of them, and if this show was released today, this would probably be the beginning of some mediation between the two where Janice would impart some sage wisdom on the two of them that would help mend their broken relationship. Instead, this is what happens.
First of all, you get your ass off and go over there.
What do I do now, Gina?
You can go away. Gina, no matter what, rule number one, we never rat out our bitches. Rule number one.
The thing is, I never
zip it.
Gina is understandably upset because she is in a position where she has been repeatedly told to listen to the judges and do what they say, and then does it and ends up getting screamed at by the star of Surreal Life Season 5.
I want to explain myself at that point because it's not fair. The thing is, though,
There's no thing. Zip it, bitch. Zip it. You're dead in my book.
The whole situation really gets to Gina and causes her to sob in the back of the van on their ride home. And I know that I use the term upsetting a lot on this show, but this clip is actually unironically upsetting. So if you're not a fan of crying, just go ahead and jump ahead 9 seconds.
Did you see Jade's face when that happened? Like,
I
she
know.
was so happy. She doesn't deserve to be happy at that point. And, I don't know how to handle it.
Normally, I would just skip that kind of clip because stuff like that kind of drags down a comedy video a little bit. But that said, I decided to keep it in because I do think it's really cosmically funny that the producers willingly chose to show the real world consequences of their actions. Like it honestly feels like a bit of a self-own on their part. Like, don't get me wrong, I make people cry and film it all the time, but I don't post it to social media because I feel like that might reflect poorly on me. Those videos are just for Willie. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if before Janice got to the restaurant, someone from production was like, we've been trying to get a fight going between Gina and Jade, and Janice was like, okay, I'll see what I can do. Just leave it to me. And if that's the case, then it works, because when the girls get home, the fight that's been brewing between Gina and Jade finally erupts. And after weeks and weeks of build-up, well, it's kind of a little bit of a letdown, to be honest. It all starts immediately following Gina's backseat sob session when Nena tries to console her by doling out some interesting pieces of advice.
I don't know what to do now.
What the heck are you scared of? What is Jade gonna do? Is she gonna spank you? From now on, even if you don't know what you're saying, just look confident so they don't see you as an easy target.
And you know, not necessarily the pep talk that I myself would have given, but Nena makes it work, and I respect her for it. Gina decides to cool off by taking a shower, and when she returns, Jade is sitting on her bed, flashing the most sinister stare I have ever seen a person stare.
And I get out of the bathroom, and I see Jade is on my bed. She's the last person I want to see by that point.
And I guess I shouldn't condone her antagonizing her fellow contestant, but the fact of the matter is that Joaquin Phoenix won an Oscar for giving way less sinister looks than what Jade is giving us there. As far as being a reality show contestant goes, this is just absolutely amazing work. I have no notes. Surprisingly, Gina doesn't do what I would have done in her shoes and piss herself before immediately quitting the competition. Instead, she stands up for herself, and while I won't say for sure that Nena's speech about spanking is what gave her the courage she needed to do so, I also won't not say that it was.
What is Jade gonna do? Is she gonna spank you?
Unfortunately, despite the fact that they've been trying to build this fight up since the beginning of the season, it's really more of a heated discussion than anything. They're both being pretty restrained and mature here, and I think the only reason that it plays as tense as it does is because they seem to have scored it with the theme from the Halloween movies for some reason.
I really didn't appreciate dinner. I thought that was so uncalled for.
Oh, Jade, I don't want to.
Well, we're gonna have to do this now because I really want
Jade,
to.
I don't want to talk about it.
Well, why not?
The way it's edited, though, it does seem like the show is very much on Gina's side because it does end up giving her the last word.
You think you're getting under my skin? You think you're intimidating me? You're not intimidating me at all. Why are you? You can say whatever the hell you want, Jade. I'm done with you.
I'm glad Gina decided to stand up for herself.
It was my battle, and I think I did pretty well.
And it's very weird because the show seems to be celebrating the fact that Gina is finally standing up for herself, but given the fact that they spent the last few episodes trying to beat her down every opportunity that they could, that celebration feels kind of hollow. Like it kind of feels like if your middle school bully got into contact with you years later just to say they were proud of you and take credit for making you stronger. After the fight, there's a challenge, but it's boring, so I'm gonna skip it. And then after the challenge, Nena calls her boyfriend again, but I don't really feel like I'm ready to talk about that just yet, so I'm gonna skip that too. Instead, I'm going to jump ahead to the part where they take the girls to Tyra Banks' talk show for a little chat with Tyra herself. And officially, I think this part of the episode was meant to set up the upcoming photo shoot, but unofficially, I'm pretty sure that they only included it to give Tyra the opportunity to brag about the fact that she has a talk show for a few minutes. The segment starts with a long Sorkin-esque walk from Tyra's stage to the holding cell backstage where they're keeping the girls. And clearly that shot was meant to make us think that Tyra went straight from her show to the girls to show us how she's this superwoman who's doing it all. But if we're being honest, I have no doubt that there was at least a 1 hour break in between when she leaves her stage and when she opens the door to where the girls are seated. Like, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if these scenes took place on entirely different days and she just changed back into that outfit for the sake of continuity. When she finally sits down, she talks to the girls about their plans for the future.
When I was 15, 16 years old, I wanted to be a model, and I really dedicated myself to being a model. But at the back of my mind, I always knew that it was a temporary career. What I want to do today is I want to talk to all of you about your future goals.
The underlying message of Tyra's lesson here is basically that modeling is an extremely difficult career that they will probably not succeed in, and even if they do, their beauty will eventually fade, so they need to have a plan B. And while that probably is a good conversation to have, it's just such a bummer talk to have in the middle of a modeling competition. Let these girls dream, Tyra. They're on a reality show. Tyra then asks the girls who they want to be in the future, and they all go around saying the career they'd be pursuing if they weren't pursuing modeling. As far as what they say, there's not a lot of surprises aside from Jade.
I love children and I want to be a kindergarten teacher.
A kindergarten teacher?
Yes, 'cause I love kids.
It's just so random to hear Jade say she wants to be a kindergarten teacher. If need be, I would homeschool my child before they went to Jade's class.
I personally feel like I probably would love to have Jade teach my kids, but that said, I also feel like I would probably be a terrible parent, so maybe Danielle is right there. When Tyra is done pretending like she cares about what any of the girls have to say, she launches into her own story about how she accomplished her dreams of becoming a reality show host. And it's really funny because the way she tells the story, it kind of sounds like she was going to talk about all the mistakes she made along the way and all the lessons she learned. But ultimately, the entire story just amounts to, I said I wanted to do something and then I did it.
When I think I was 18 or 19 years old, I did an interview in Milan, Italy. And I was all young and bubbly, like, I'm just happy to do an interview. And they were like, so Tyra, what are you going to be doing after modeling? And I'm like, well, you know what? When I'm 23 or 24 years old, I'm going to retire from modeling and I'm going to have my own talk show. So I did make this talk show dream come true. And it's because I always had my mind on that.
This show is edited a bunch, so I'm sure there's a lot more to that story than what we hear, but based on what we do see, the only piece of advice being given here is to not give up, which, well, I guess that's good advice, but I got to imagine that there's a lot more complexities to getting your own talk show than wanting it badly enough. And like I said earlier, based on what we see, I truly think that the only reason that the show includes this scene is to just give Tyra a chance to flex, which, like, good for her, honestly. If I made all my childhood dreams come true, I'd also go on the reality show I host to brag about it. Aside from being a way for Tyra to make sure we all know that she's better than us, the conversation she had with the contestants was also a way to set up the photo shoot this week, which entails the girls posing as the careers they chose while talking to Tyra. Of course, since this is Top Model, they couldn't do a photo shoot about female employment without adding an unfortunate twist to it, so they also have the girls pose with male models and style them in a way that seems pointedly sexualized.
My theme was crime investigator / dominatrix. Not sure how one has to do with the other.
The overtly sexualized nature of the photo shoot is especially unfortunate for Jade's photo because if you recall, she said she wanted to be a kindergarten teacher, and that combination leads to, well, let's say it's an interesting shoot.
Read him a story. That was so kind of twisted but cute. See, it worked. Good job.
The best part of this episode is the part where we meet the male models because it is, without question, the most mid-2000s thing I have ever seen in my life.
Guys, introduce yourself, starting down here.
My name is JT. I'm Skylar. What's up, I'm Vaughn.
Steven.
Zane.
Like, I genuinely believe that the only way any of those men could actually exist in the real world is if they crawled out of an episode of Lizzie McGuire, like the little girl from The Ring, you know, just like that's the only way that they make any sense to me. The male model that Nena gets paired with is Vaughn, and they have some undeniable chemistry, which, well, I guess is appropriate because Nena's plan B is to become a biochemist.
It helps when both models are attractive. He was attractive, I think I'm attractive, so I think that helped.
Oh, that one was hot. Did you see that?
All the touching and groping and all the sensualness. What?
And like I said earlier, they end up making out.
Last frame. Work, damn it.
And this unfortunately brings me to the part of the video that I've been dreading this whole time, because after she makes out with Vaughn, Nena decides to tell John what happened, and that means that I have to talk about their relationship again, so hooray.
Hey babe, we had photo shoots with guys today.
Uh-oh. Nena,
Yes, babe.
what did you do?
Nothing.
Nena, did you kiss on a guy?
No.
Oh, I can't believe you did.
I felt guilty, and the girls made such a big deal about it. I was like, oh man, okay, maybe I should tell John.
Okay, I lied.
Nena.
I'll talk to you tomorrow, okay? Hello?
Like I said earlier, I apologize in advance if I put my foot in my mouth, because I'm about to start talking about some very sensitive subject matter, and I'm absolutely not the right person to do it, but I also don't know how to make this video without talking about it, so, like, your move. And, like, I don't know how else to say this, so I will just say it. The way this show portrays this relationship, it very much seems to me to be abusive, and while that alone would be a complicated enough thing for me to try and discuss, what makes things even more complicated is the fact that I genuinely cannot tell if it's actually an abusive relationship or if it's just how it looks on the show. I feel extremely uncomfortable saying what I just said, but those are the kind of corners that I get backed into when discussing this show, so just, like, hear me out. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely an extremely toxic relationship, but I feel like if the people editing this show could have, they absolutely would have included a shot of, like, John eating an apple with a knife and just, like, telling Nena not to talk to anyone else but him, and I don't think that that's what's going on here. I've talked before about how the show seems intent on trying to mine Nena's life for tragedy, and I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if they saw that she had a shitty boyfriend and were just like, let's play that up for the drama, because that is what they do on this show, because it is a black void where human decency goes to die. I don't like to look up any information on this show other than what's in the episode, mostly due to laziness, but I was nervous about fucking this part up enough that I did look up to see if Nena said anything about the relationship after the fact, and the only thing that I could find about it anywhere online was this blurb on the Top Model Wiki about how the girls complained a bunch about how much time Nena was spending on the phone talking to John. And if that's actually the case, then it means that the editors probably had a lot more footage of the two of them talking than the 5 or so minutes we actually see, which makes me think that what we're seeing is an extremely condensed and highly edited version of the truth. Who knows, maybe what we don't see is a lot worse and makes things a lot more clear-cut, but if that is the case, then I think that the bigger issue is the fact that in the next episode, the people making the show fly John in to see Nena. Because if things are terrible, then they definitely should not be doing that. And, like, I can't stress enough that I am just some asshole on the internet, so my opinion doesn't matter, and a relationship doesn't need to seem abusive to me to actually be abusive, but there's still something off about the whole thing, because as shitty as John seems, I feel like the editing techniques on this show are infinitely shittier. The more I rewatch the scenes between Nena and John, the more it just kind of feels like this sort of shitty relationship that a lot of us go through in our 20s when we're still young and figuring ourselves out. Like, John kind of just seems like an extremely insecure guy, and Nena seems like she's just not that into him but doesn't really know how to end the relationship, and, like, that's a terrible equation, and people in that equation are usually not going to be putting their best selves forward.
You understand how miserable it is? How miserable I am not getting to talk to you?
You're getting to talk to me right
I get to hear from you.
My boyfriend. I guess I didn't realize how attached he really was to me.
Then I asked you, what are your intentions with me, this man?
I don't know.
If you can sit there and have no idea what your answer is.
He's angry, he's vulnerable, he's missing me.
I didn't hear what I wanted to hear.
You're being very annoying and you're still not stopping. You're making it worse.
For me to focus in this competition, yes, I need John to back off a little bit.
It's awful and it's toxic, but I also gotta imagine that a lot of you watching this have either been a John or a Nena at some point in your life, and you were just lucky enough that you didn't have cameras there to document it, so some asshole like me could dissect the interactions a decade and a half later. Whatever the truth may be, though, I think we can all agree that this conversation is very much putting a damper on what is intended to be a comedy video, so I think for all of our sakes it might just be best if we moved on. During judging, the girls are asked to take what they learned from Janice and demonstrate commercial poses for the judges, and while in concept that sounds like a perfectly normal challenge to have, in a modeling competition, in practice it's extremely weird to watch. Dear Sweet Gina has no idea what to do because, well, I feel like that's a normal reaction to the situation she's been presented with, and her confusion leads to one of my favorite moments of the episode. And then, as if the posing challenge wasn't surreal enough, they decide to up the weird factor tenfold by handing the girls a fireman's outfit for some reason and having them use it to demonstrate editorial posing.
Now I need you to do 3 edgy poses using these items.
There we go.
What?
This part of the episode is a great example of one of my favorite aspects of Top Model, which is the fact that so much of what they do on this show is clearly just based around stuff that the producers just like have lying around whatever studio they shoot on. Like, there is no doubt in my mind that that costume is not something that they sought out. It was definitely just like in a dark corner somewhere and someone found it and was like, I don't know, we could maybe use this for posing or something? Yeah, fuck it, whatever. Once again, the shady editors make sure to highlight the fact that Gina has no idea how to react to the challenge.
Second pose.
Do I have to do more, or is it?
You have 2 more. Edgy poses.
And there's a good reason that they keep doing this, and that's because Gina is the one who gets eliminated this episode. If you're wondering what my thoughts on that are, well, all I have to say on the matter is, like, no duh. It was very clearly Gina's time to go, and I'm honestly surprised that she stuck around for as long as she did. I've made it no secret that I think the only reason that Gina was on the show was to give Jade someone to fight with, and now that they've had that fight, they don't really have much use for Gina anymore, and so she was sent home. And honestly, I know I've made a lot of jokes about Gina on this show, but the more I think about it, the more unfair it feels. Like, during her time on the show, Gina did a lot of stuff that I gotta imagine she doesn't look back on fondly. You know, she said stupid stuff.
I'm not into Asian guys.
Why not?
The thing is, they're a lot shorter than I am, which is something that I can't tolerate.
She got a little too drunk.
It's empty, honey.
I'm good at Russian.
Keep your eyes open and all.
She was unsure of herself. And when you put it all side by side like that, it becomes apparent that Gina isn't really the mess of a person that the show wants to portray her as. More than anything, she's just a kid. Nothing Gina does on the show suggests that she's anything more than your average 20-year-old who's still just finding herself, and if that's the case, then it makes me feel really, really bad for her. I'm sure her time on the show has followed her a lot, and that's a shame because I'm also sure that she's probably changed a lot as a person since the time this aired. It feels extremely unfair to her that so many people probably only know her from this time in her life when she was clearly not done growing yet. And God help me, but the more I think about Gina, the more I can't help but think about Nena's boyfriend John, because, like, I don't know, I guess I'm just a masochist. I know I only talked about this like 4 minutes ago, but I already feel like I should clarify something I said, because I feel very uncomfortable about saying that I'm not sure if it's an abusive relationship, because I feel like I don't mean that the way that it sounds. I feel like lots of people's stories are ignored or brushed aside by people saying like, well, I can't see it happen, so I guess it doesn't exist. And I in no way want to contribute to anything like that. What I mean is that I remember watching this when it aired and thinking very clearly that that man is an abusive boyfriend. But having rewatched it over and over again for this video, I can't tell now if the reason that I thought that is because I was just a dumb kid, or if it's just because he actually was, or if it's because that's what the producers wanted me to think. In all honesty, it's probably some combination of the three, but I'll never know for sure, because all I'm ever going to get is the 3 scenes or so we get of him, and that's really not a lot to go on. Like I said earlier, there's nothing I would like to do more than just call John an asshole and be done with it, because cards on the table, I absolutely hate this man. I hate his face. I think he uses too much hair gel, and even if he is the victim of editing, I think there's still a good chance that he's still a massive douche. Unfortunately for me though, I just can't shake the feeling that there's a world in which, God help me, I should actually feel bad for the guy. Like I said, the more I watch this, the more it feels to me like we're seeing nothing but the sort of extremely shitty relationship that a lot of people have in their 20s. And if that's actually the case, then that probably really, really sucks for him. When I looked for more information on the internet about the relationship, I genuinely found nothing about John. Like, I couldn't even figure out his last name. The only thing that I and probably most people know about him comes from the short time he spent on national television in 2006. And if my suspicions are correct, imagine how bad it must suck to have your entire public perception shaped by a few minutes of footage from what you were like in a terrible relationship you had in your 20s. I will never know if John is being portrayed as a worse person than he actually is, but what I do know is that it's hard for me to say without a doubt that he is as shitty as of a person as he seems on the show, because if we're being honest, if I had a camera pointed at me during certain points in my 20s, then I probably would have come off way worse than John does here. I've spent a lot of time this episode worried that I'm going to say something awful, and as I begin to wind things down, I'm still not entirely sure if I have. I don't know if there's going to be some big itemized list of all the stupid things I said here waiting for me in the comments right now, but I'm kind of dreading it a little bit. But that said, what I'm dreading even more are the comments that are angry for an entirely different reason, because if this video reaches a wide enough audience, then I know that those are coming. I've been on the internet for a long enough time to know that regardless of what the stereotype says, the most vocal people on this hellscape are the ones who are going to get angry about the fact that I'm being too sensitive right now. They'll say stuff like, who cares, or just say what you want, and then they'll say something like, when did it become a crime to be white, despite the fact that I don't really think I even mentioned race in this video. Maybe they'll see the word problematic in this video title and click in just so they can talk about how political correctness is destroying the country and then tell me that I'm gay, which, like, if that happens, then how dare you? I never. I don't really know why I needed the fan to make that joke. I'm literally already knitting. One of the upsides of not having a lot of viewers yet is that I tend to not get a lot of these people, but I still know there's a good chance that they're coming, and I'm dreading it because I really don't agree with a single word that they have to say. Like, I know that I'm being overly cautious and sensitive, but there's a reason for that, and that's because I don't want to be a dick, because the sad fact is that for a large portion of my life, I have been. While we're on the subject of mean comments, the fact of the matter is that they don't super faze me that much anymore. Like, when you put stuff out on the internet, you always kind of expect to eventually read something that makes you feel bad about yourself. It just kind of comes with the territory. But that said, what's been surprising to me though is that since I've started putting up more of these videos, the comments that make me feel the worst are the ones that are complimentary towards me. An extremely small few of you said stuff like, I seem nice or cool or things like that, and while I really appreciate it, there's a part of me that reads stuff like that and instantly starts to think about all the shitty things I've done in my life and all the things that would make the people saying nice things about me change their minds, and well, then I just kind of start to feel bad. There's a lot of stuff I've done that I regret, and things I've said that I wish I could take back, and people from my past that I wish I could apologize to, and it doesn't take much for thoughts of all of those things to like bubble up in my brain and then like harden and sink to the pit of my stomach like a bunch of hard little regret rocks. That was a really dumb way of putting that thought, but I feel like hopefully you get my point. And like, I'm not going to go through and give you guys a list of everything I've ever done that I'm ashamed of. But for the purpose of this video, I can talk about one thing that pops up a lot when I sit and ruminate about my past stupidity, and that's that I've done a lot of really stupid shit in my life for the sake of a laugh. From an early age, I always liked to make people laugh. Possibly because laughter is the closest thing to human emotion that I've ever been able to comprehend. I don't know. But what I do know is that I've done a lot of things in my life where I was trying to be funny and I ended up hurting someone or crossing a line or saying something stupid, or in many cases all three at once, because I'm just that good at creating regrets for myself. A lot of times I did it very much on purpose. There was a long period where I did a lot of things thinking I was being edgy, which, like, for the record, never a good thing to think you're being, because 100% of the time that's just code for you being an asshole. And like, again, I won't go through and tell you all the things that I did, because I very much hope that those things just stay in the past where they belong. But let's just say that I decided that I wanted to be a comedian around the same time that Twitter became a thing, and the people I looked up to the most were Sarah Silverman and Anthony Jeselnik. That is a terrible combination of things. I used to actively try and write or say the most heinous, awful, offensive things I could think of because I thought I was being some kind of iconoclast, when in reality all I was doing was being stupid and not particularly funny. I look back at that person who I was now and cringe, because honestly I don't really know how I could ever think that what I was doing was okay. I've grown a lot since, and I've seen how hurtful stuff like that can be, even when you think you're doing it under the guise of irony or humor, and I don't want to be that person anymore. Which, like, that's not to say that I'm still not kind of an asshole with the jokes that I make, because, like, if that were the case, I probably wouldn't have spent so much time making fun of that dude's appearance, but the fact of the matter is I really hate his facial hair, and there's nothing I can do about that. But yeah, I do try to be careful now, because there was a time when I actively tried to not be careful, and I really, really regret it. I think a lot about the stuff that I've done that I wish I didn't, and when I do, I can't help but think about what it would be like if I were in John or Gina's position, being judged solely on little snapshots of my life from years ago, because I know that if that were the case, there's a lot of you watching this who like me now who probably wouldn't like me anymore. And honestly, I'd understand. There are a lot of ways in which I hate the person who I have been, so I get why you would too, but that said, I don't really think I'm that same person anymore. I've done my best to learn and grow and change as best as I can, and while I still think I have a long way to go, I like to think that I'm at least doing a little better now than I was at my absolute worst, and that's honestly not nothing. And while I can't say for sure that everyone has done as many shitty things as I have in my life, what I can say with absolute certainty is that nobody is perfect. I genuinely believe that we all have things we can improve about ourselves or ways we can grow, and if that's the case, then maybe better is the best that any of us can do. When I make these videos and rewatch Top Model, the thing that I always think is, how the hell did I used to watch this shit and think that it was okay? And watching something as problematic as this episode, I thought that twice as hard. Like honestly, I don't know how any of us made it out of 2006 alive, but all I can say is that I am very happy that we are not there anymore. We tend to look at the negatives of the past and feel bad about all of them, and the truth is we probably should. But by the same token, I think we should at least be able to take a little solace in the fact that the only reason we're able to feel bad is because things have probably changed a little bit. If stuff in the past seems worse, then that might just mean that maybe things are a little bit better now. I usually do my best to recreate the photo shoots they do on this show, and you'll notice that I didn't do that this week, and that's because in order to do it, I had to figure out who it was that I want to be in the future. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that who I want to be can't really be captured in a still image, because who I want to be is constantly changing. So with that in mind, I guess you can just consider this video my recreation of the photo shoot. A moving image of a deeply, deeply flawed person trying my best to be better. I honestly think that's the best that any of us can do, and so that's who I want to be. Although, actually, I guess in order to truly recreate the photo shoot, I need to pose with a male model, but I don't really have access to one of those, so one second. Okay, so I have my cat who, despite being a cat, is a boy, so he'll be my male model, and so like now you can consider this my recreation of the photo shoot, like a moving image of a guy trying his best to be better and all that jazz. Okay, so like, actually, I guess that they were sexy in it too, so I guess I'll be so. Now this is my photo shoot. I don't know if I should cut this part. It's kind of a clumsy way to end this video. I don't know, whatever. Just like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.